So it's not quite Friday in that it's Monday, and this is not quite a fragment in that I'll be talking about it more than just reading it and moving on. I picked up a book off my shelf by the author Michael Chabon. This is The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay. And I've had it for a long time. I've never even opened it. I don't really know what it's about beyond the fact that it has to do with a couple of guys and a comic book empire or something to that effect. What I do know is that Michael Chabon's writing is incredibly rich and dense with imagery. And so I'm going to read the first page of it and then talk about it, I guess. So, Michael Chabon, C-H-A-B-O-N. Anyway. Pretty thick book. I'm excited to get through it, though, at some point. I probably won't read it anytime soon. Chapter 1. In later years, holding forth to an interviewer or to an audience of aging fans at a comic book convention, Sam Clay liked to declare apropos of his and Joe Cavalier's greatest creation, that back when he was a boy, sealed and hog-tied inside the airtight vessel known as Brooklyn, New York, he had been haunted by dreams of Harry Houdini. To me, Clark Kent in a phone booth and Houdini in a packing crate, they were one and the same thing, he would learnedly expound at WonderCon or Angola May, or to the editor of the Comics Journal. You weren't the same person when you came out as when you went in. Houdini's first magic act, you know, back when he was just getting started, it was called Metamorphosis. It was never just a question of escape, it was also a question of transformation. The truth was that, as a kid, Sammy had only a casual interest at best in Harry Houdini and his legendary feats. His great heroes were Nikola Tesla, Louis Pasteur, and Jack London, yet his account of his role, of the role of his own imagination in the escapist birth, like all of his best fabulations, rang true. His dreams had always been Houdini-esque. They were the dreams of a pupa struggling in its blind cocoon, mad for a taste of light and air. Houdini was a hero to little men, city boys, and Jews. Samuel Lewis Clayman was all three. He was 17 when the adventures began, big-mouthed, perhaps not quite as quick on his feet as he liked to imagine, and tending to be, like many optimists, a little excitable. He was not in any conventional way handsome. His face was an inverted triangle, brow large, chin pointed, and pouting lips and a blunt quarrelsome nose. He slouched and wore clothes badly. He always looked as though he had just been jumped for his lunch money. He went forward each morning with the hairless cheek of innocence itself, but by noon a clean shave was no more than a memory, a hobo-ish penumbra on the jaw not quite sufficient to make him look tough. He thought of himself as ugly, but this was because he had never seen his face in repose. He had delivered the Eagle for most of 1931 in order to afford a set of dumbbells, which he had hefted every morning for the next 8 years until his arms, chest, and shoulders were ropey and strong. Polio had left him with the legs of a delicate boy. He stood in his socks 5 feet, 5 inches tall. Like all of his friends, he considered it a compliment when somebody called him a wise ass. He possessed an incorrect but fervent understanding of the workings of television, atom power, and anti-gravity, and harbored the ambition, one of 1,000, of ending his days on the warm sunny beaches of the great polar ocean of Venus. Okay, so it's, you know, it's very dense. The sentences are extremely long. There's another author, dead author, actually. He killed himself. I believe he hung himself. His name is David Foster Wallace, and he had this ability to just grow sentences, you know, add these clauses and things that made it feel like you were inside the protagonist's head, really, because the asides are very much like how people think. You know, we talk about one thing, we're thinking about another thing. You know, dwelling, whatever. And if you can capture that all in one sentence, you know, with M dashes, I don't know if you know what an M dash is, but, you know, with parentheticals, with all these different things, then you create a better sense of who the character is. I mean, he describes himself in such a way that is very self-deprecating. And so he's not said, I'm self-deprecating, but you know that he is. You know that he is by the way he talks about himself. The imagery, I think, is, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, there was, what was that word? A hobo-ish penumbra on the jaw. I've never heard of a 12 o'clock shadow or a 5 o'clock shadow, you know, being called a hobo-ish penumbra. You know, and it's those kind of things that elevate writing to poetry, and you know, I just dig it. So, and I've heard that this is like one of the best books ever. Also, it is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. Yes, so I'm gonna give that a shot. But what I'm reading now is Simone Elkelez's, what is it? Which one is it? There's like 4. I don't know. Perfect Chemistry. I'm reading Perfect Chemistry just because everyone's reading it and they seem to love it. And it's a pretty quick read, very small chaptered. I'm sure, unlike the Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay, which that was just frankly 2 paragraphs, just so you're aware, and very dense writing. So anyway, that's my Fragment Friday. I wanted to pick something a little bit lighter, but that's just the book that jumped out at me. Maybe next time, or maybe I'll do one more taste from one of my favorites, and that is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Now this is a very disturbing book. Very disturbing. I'm not sure that it'll pick up from the first page, but we'll see how it does. I'm just going to read the first page. I'm not going to flip it like I did the other one. Chapter 1. My sweater was new, stinging red and ugly. It was May 12th, but the temperature had dipped to the 40s, and after 4 days shivering in my shirt sleeves, I grabbed cover at a tag sale rather than dig through my boxed-up winter clothes spring in Chicago. In my gunny-covered cubicle, I sat staring at the computer screen. My story for the day was a limp sort of evil. 4 kids, ages 2 through 6, were found locked in a room on the south side with a couple of tuna sandwiches and a quart of milk. They'd been left there 3 days, flurrying like chickens over the food and feces on the carpet. Their mother had wandered off for a suck on the pipe and just forgotten. Sometimes that's what happens. No cigarette burns, no bone slaps, just an irretrievable slipping. I'd seen the mother after the arrest, 22-year-old Tammy Davis, blonde and fat, with pink rouge on her cheeks and 2 perfect circles the size of shot glasses. I could imagine her sitting on a shamble-down sofa, her lips on that metal, a sharp burst of smoke. Then all was fast floating, her kids way behind as she shot back to junior high, when the boys still cared and she was the prettiest, a glossy-lipped 13-year-old, with mouthed cinnamon sticks before she kissed. A belly, a smell, cigarettes and old coffee, my editor, esteemed weary Frank Curry, rocking back in his cracked hush puppies, his teeth soaked in brown tobacco saliva. I love it. It's dark. It's also, it also rings true for me, the experiences. I used to be a psychotherapist, but I worked for the state and ended up having to go out to people's homes. I came upon this home way out in the country. It was probably a good hour drive out in the middle of nowhere, back where they don't even have street signs anymore. Found this house where I was supposed to see this family and see if I could help them, and walked in, and the kids had been in there by themselves. The 9-year-old was the oldest, 9-year-old daughter, and they'd been alone for 4 days, and the 9-year-old was taking care of the youngest all the way down to an infant. They were dirty, and it was really horrible. And so it's just those kind of things, those experiences that connect you to a book. They're almost like kismet, you know. This person has written something, then I've had a similar experience, and you go from there. And as writers, I think we try to impart a lot of that ourselves. So if you're worried about, don't ever worry about a character being a Mary Jane. People are going to call it that no matter what, because they don't know. Or people aren't going to call it that when they should, frankly, because they won't believe that that's really you. You connect with people through shared experiences. So as you're writing and you feel like you have a connection to the character, input something that is from you. You know, some sort of life experience that you could add to their backstory. It doesn't matter that it's not fiction. You know, the book itself is fictional in that you're going to impart that story to the character. It's like a gift. It's a gift to the character. So anyway, that's all. It's defragmental. I don't know what it is. It's definitely mental. Anyway, that's it. Hope you liked it. Questions, I don't know. We could talk about stuff in the comments and go from there.